Hello, this is Dr. C. A little different than the exercise programs. We're going to talk about senior issues. These are issues that we had talked about somewhat at the senior center when I was there, but they are still very important issues. And it's something that especially people who are more homebound really need to know. So, why don't we go ahead and get started? When I talk about end-of-life issues, they don't start at the end of life. You need to prepare. Preparation is very important. And so there are some things that you need to get done early on, before you're at the end of life. For example, you need a will, a simple will. 55% of people have a will, 45% don't. No reason in the world not to have a simple will. You can download the forms now on the internet. If you don't have an internet, I have the blank forms. And I'll tell you exactly, I'll be happy to sit down with you, tell you how to go through it. It's simple. Now, what's included in the will? Basically, in a will, you're telling the world basically how you want to get rid of your assets. That's all. And I'm very, very much determined for people to do their own will, do their own planning. You don't need to spend big bucks doing this. What's included in a will? Well, besides I want to give it to my beneficiary or beneficiaries, whatever you want to give it to. Some people don't have a family. They want to give it maybe to their school, maybe to their church, but they spell that out in the will. What else do you need in a will? Well, if you do have the means to go about your internet, you have passwords. Yes, passwords. And if you pass away, who's going to know what those passwords are? How are they going to cancel any of those things that you happen to belong to? How are they going to have access if you happen to do banking through the internet? Do they know your password? Well, there is a thing now in a will that you can put in so that you have all your passwords given to whatever the beneficiary is that you want. They don't have to be the same beneficiary that you name as the person to get all your assets. They can be someone separate. But you need to name someone who is going to do the work necessary to take care of these, what they call digital assets. For example, myself, I have a son who's a computer engineer. He knows how to do this stuff just like that. Nowadays, of course, a lot of the younger people know. We may not know all of the things, but they know. So I named my son, not necessarily as the only beneficiary, but I named him as the one to do my digital assets. Now, you don't put the listing of your passwords into the will document, because that will has to be approved through the probate court, which means that loads of people can look at it. That's just what you want to do with all your passwords, right? So you keep it on a separate sheet of paper. When you get your will back, it's all signed, notarized. Remember, 2 witnesses and a notary. That makes it legal. Now you put that sheet of paper with your passwords into that will. That way, it avoids being seen by a number of people who have no business looking at it. Okay. Make your will. What else do you need? Well, what you need to have possibly a revocable trust. Now, there are many different kinds of trusts. Basically, all a trust is that you put some assets into that trust, you name a trustee, and you can legalize it. That's all you got to do. Now, what's the difference between a revocable trust, which is one you can change, and you can change it in a second. There's also an irrevocable trust. What's the difference? Well, a revocable trust, first of all, the biggest advantage is it does not have to go through the probate courts. Now, why is probate such a big deal? Well, several reasons. Number one, time. May take several months to get through a probate court. Number two, public knowledge. Anybody can look at that. Big deal. Number three, costs money. Given those reasons, you might consider a revocable trust. But remember, if you have that revocable trust, you need the two witnesses, you need the notary. It's all legal. But that revocable trust should be not only in your possession, should be in someone else's possession. Usually you have either a family member or maybe your lawyer or somebody that you have placed that revocable trust in their hands. So you don't just keep it yourself and keep it quiet. Revocable trust. Avoid probate. Unfortunately, you still have to pay taxes on the stuff because it's still yours. The state looks upon it, the federal government looks upon it as your assets. Whatever you may gain from those assets during the year, you're going to pay taxes on it. Irrevocable trust. Once you sign those papers, two witnesses and the notary, you no longer have those assets immediately available to you. No longer do. With the revocable trust, you can name yourself the trustee, or name your wife or your husband the trustee, or make a family member the trustee, or make you and an alternate a trustee. Any way you want to do it. But you can change it, and it's still your assets. With the irrevocable trust now, you sign away all those assets. So both federal and state taxes are not applicable anymore. That's a big advantage to an irrevocable trust. Usually you don't want an irrevocable trust unless you have a fair amount of money. And I can't put a definite number on that, but you're well-to-do. You can afford to put all these assets into that trust. And remember, you have to sign these things into the trust. So for example, your home, you paid the mortgage off, it's still your home, you don't want to move. What you do is you can sign a quit claim deed, deeding it over to the trust. So now the trust owns the home. But remember, with a revocable trust, really you still own it because you're the trustee too. But with an irrevocable trust, if you sign it over, no longer belongs to you. You don't own it anymore. The advantage, you don't have to pay the taxes, and you avoid probate as well. That's an irrevocable trust. Okay. What else do we need to do early on? These are early on things now that I'm talking about. And they should be done. You should also have a durable power of attorney. Now, people who try to sell you life insurance, for example, they tell you, oh, I don't care if you're 25 years old, you got an estate, you could get killed tomorrow, you never know. Well, using that same argument, you can say, well, maybe I should have a durable power of attorney. Again, durable means you can change it at any time. Power of attorney appoints someone that you trust to handle your financial affairs. Should you no longer choose, or maybe you don't choose to do it, they will handle your financial affairs. Durable power of attorney. Again, 2 witnesses and notary, and it's legal. Okay, so I would strongly consider durable power of attorney as well. What else should you do in preparation early on? Well, simple things. All your assets, let's say you have some stocks and bonds or whatever. Or let's say that you have a 401k. Whatever you have. You'll have beneficiaries on there. Every few years you should review the beneficiaries on all these things, including your life insurance, including your 401k, your bank account. You may consider having a joint bank account. If you're married, you have your spouse usually as a joint member. Now, if you pass away, it automatically goes to the person who's on that joint account with you. So not only do you avoid probate, there's no big hassle with that. Okay, so you got to think about these little financial things, and you have to review them. Every 4 to 5 years, you need to review it to be sure that it is exactly the way you want it. Things change in 4 to 5 years. I know I've changed mine a couple of times. And so it's good to review them. First to have them, and then to review them. What else do you need? Well, you should consider too long-term care insurance. Long-term care insurance is much cheaper when you're younger. But remember, you're going to maybe be paying this not insignificant premium, possibly for 50 years too, you know? You got to think about that. Do you think you're going to need long-term care insurance? By the time you're 75, I wouldn't even consider getting long-term care insurance. Number one, it's expensive. And number two, the average time that people have, say in a nursing home, whatever, is only about 2 years. Is it worth that premium for a couple of years? So it's something to consider, something you've got to know is there, but think about that seriously, whether you need it or not. You also should think about what kind of a team should you have together to take care of your assets at the end of life. Doesn't mean you got to appoint anybody, but you got to think about it. Your family members go into many different fields. So you say, gee, you know, that person there really has my feelings at heart. That might be a good person to be my medical power of attorney later in life. So you try to prepare that team effort early on, so that all of a sudden when things happen later in life, it's not just a sudden thing where you got a dozen different things to appoint, to think about, etc. You've got them already there. Okay. Those are the primary early things that you need to think about. So, what then happens between those early preparations and as you get on in life? A lot of us have chronic illnesses. Maybe something that isn't going to necessarily immediately do you in. Maybe you have high blood pressure. Maybe you have developed diabetes. In other words, these are chronic illnesses. They're not going to go away. Does that change your mind a little bit about how you proceed in the future? It should. It should. Because most of these diseases are very slowly progressive. They're not going away. And so, what do you need to do to plan now? Well, you got to think about that medical power of attorney. Again, you can change whoever you get. The medical power of attorney doesn't really get used until you no longer are capable of making medical decisions. Maybe you have a sudden stroke. Maybe you have an auto accident or something with a head injury. Maybe you are developing an early dementia. All of these issues now become significant. Are you still going to be capable mentally of choosing a person to be your medical power of attorney? You got to think about that as you begin to develop these chronic illnesses in the mid-portion of your life. That's a very, very important decision, that medical power of attorney. What you're doing is you're appointing someone to make your decisions for you. So obviously, whoever you may choose, you need to talk to them about what you yourself would prefer to do. And there's a lot of different scenarios. Let's say that maybe you develop a cancer. And at first it may seem it's cured, but then it comes right back again. You've still got your faculties about you, but you can foresee that if this is a progressive thing, it won't be too long, maybe just a number of years before you will not be capable of making that choice. So, now is the time to think about medical power of attorney. Later in life, when we start developing into the later stages of these chronic illnesses, then the old synapses are not working as well. What you need to look at are your capabilities and incapabilities. So we go into things like what they call activities of daily living. And then we can go into the instrumental activities of daily living. What are the activities of daily living? The things you absolutely have to do. You've got, in the morning when you get up, you've got to get dressed. You've got to bathe. You've got to eat. You got to be able to walk or get to wherever you want to go, ambulate. Those are all basic activities of daily living. What are some of the instrumental activities of daily living? You got to go out and buy your food. So transportation. Maybe your vision is going and you can't drive anymore. Maybe that neighbor who used to give you all sorts of rides moves away. Times change, things change, people change. You've got to have that transportation ability. Number two, you got to be able to handle the housekeeping. You don't want to live in a pigsty, not when you haven't done that all your life. Number three, you've got to have someone who's going to be there to go and purchase the foods that you're going to eat. Also, your financial affairs. Hopefully you have that durable power of attorney, and now you can actually get that thing started. Have that person that you appointed as your durable power of attorney. Let's get that going. Let them handle your financial affairs. Remember, a lot of people take advantage of us as we get older. Unfortunately, a lot of the people who take advantage of us may be family members, may be people who come in to your home as a friend, or maybe as a home health aide or something. 60% of all of the abuse, financial abuse that happens to seniors, are members of your own family. So, you've got to keep a good tab on all of those instrumental activities of daily living. Examples of that. There may only be one activity of daily living that you can't do. Let's say that whatever you try to do, you just can't clothe yourself because of your damn arthritis. You just can't button. You can't zip up. You can't do things to dress properly. All because of that arthritis, which is now disabling for you. So that would be, but you can do many other things. You may be able to handle all the other activities of daily living, but you just can't dress yourself. What are your options? Well, there are a lot of options out there. When you talk to people who have relatives, usually they're parents, and they're caretakers for their parents, what are the major issues that they are confronted with, besides what we've already talked about? Well, first of all, living, the residence. What are the options at that time of your life when things now begin to show up? You may want to stay in your own home, and that would be my choice. I'd rather stay in my own home, obviously. But let's say that you're in my situation. I got 10 kids. We got a big house. Of course, the kids have all moved out. Now it's a big house, just me and my wife. That's it. Getting tougher to clean that place. Getting tougher to get the yard done. Getting tougher to do all of the activities you need to do to stay in that home. Okay? So maybe you just need a home health aide. There are two types of home health aides, medical and non-medical. The home health aides may just be called assistants to give you some help. Maybe they can just do the house cleaning. Come in for a few hours, do the house cleaning. Maybe they can do the cooking. Maybe they can do the shopping for you. Of course, nowadays you can just call or go online and order stuff from all the stores anyway, and they can deliver the groceries to you. That makes it much easier, obviously. So, you need to consider, do I need some help at home? Yes, it will cost, but certainly cost nowhere near what it would cost if you had to go and live in an assisted living facility. So, can you just downsize? Maybe move to a smaller facility where you don't have to do all of that stuff. You could move to a senior living facility. I don't like that because it's all seniors. Not that I don't like seniors. I love seniors. I'm a senior. I do a lot of stuff with the seniors. But I also like to have the stimulation of having some kids around. Yeah, they're nuisances sometimes, but it's good to have that around. I wouldn't consider a senior living facility, but who knows? Times change, and like I say, you review these every few years, and you may change your mind. So, another option, stay at home, home health care. You can go out for daytime care. There are facilities now around Worcester that offer daytime Sort of like kids going to school. Get a daytime facility for you, bring you home at night. That's certainly a lot less expensive than going to an assisted living facility. So, can you downsize? Go to a smaller home. Remember, that smaller home may be almost what you paid for your original home. You maybe can't even afford a smaller home now. At least now you don't have a mortgage. You'd like to stay in your own home, live in a section. Maybe you could live in a section, rent out part of your home, have an income coming in. So all of these are options. What other options do you have? Well, if there are a couple of activities of daily living that you can't do, then you need to consider having a live-in person coming in, doing the activities with you that you can't do. But you have to really make sure that you can trust that individual. Now, there are some of the agencies around the Worcester area that do look into all of the people who apply for that type of thing. And they're supposed to vet them. They're supposed to be sure that they're good people. Sometimes you have to think about it. But that is an option for you. That is an option, having someone come in to live with you. Now, the other options would be you may want to go to an assisted living facility. You may want to go to an independent living. You may want to go to a place that takes away all of your rights, a nursing home. The assisted living facilities in Massachusetts are not cheap. Probably going to cost you upwards to $80,000 to $90,000 a year. So they're not cheap. And they offer different things. Different facilities offer you different things. For example, some may offer 3 meals a day as part of that premium that you pay them. Some of them would offer having nursing there. It depends on the needs, your needs. And so you try to pick the exact assisted living facility that would meet those needs. What are the things that you need to choose a facility like that? Well, first of all, location. You'd like to stay around the same area that you lived in. All your friends, or at least the friends that are still around, are still there. You'd like to be able to still communicate with them. Number 2, finances. How much money do you have? How much can you afford? These are things those are the 2 major issues that people have. They don't want to move too far, and they want to choose something that they can afford. So what I'm going to do, basically, I'm going to divide this program now into 2 parts. We did the first part, the early and mid portion of end-of-life issues. On the next portion, we're going to do all of the serious things that you need to do and consider at truly the end of life. And so I offer to be with you again for another program so we can talk about those things as well. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.